Here's our agenda for tonight. We'll doing this brief welcome and our land acknowledgement, and then we'll just recap a little bit of what we've covered before, remind folks where we're coming from. We've got a breakout room tonight with some fun questions and a poll that we'll be inviting you to fill out, short poll. And then we'll dive into what the community practice is all about and give you all the details and answer any questions you have. We'll make sure you know who our team is and know how you can apply for the community practice and what the next steps are. Joshua, would you like to lead us in our land acknowledgement?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Wherever you may be, let us acknowledge that we are all on indigenous land. Minnesota is located on the traditional and contemporary homelands of the Anishinaabe and Dakota peoples, the original stewards of this territory. We are committed to uplifting the name of these lands and the community members from these nations as we pursue a right path together. We acknowledge the trauma that is deeply embedded in the foundation of this country. The land we reside on came under control of the USA through genocide, slavery, and ongoing occupation. We recognize the deep historical, spiritual, and personal trauma that has impacted indigenous communities, communities of color, and immigrant communities. By offering this acknowledgement of trauma, we affirm the right of people to bring their whole selves and stories into this space, and we affirm our intention to promote healing, respect, and love.
Thank you, Joshua. And thanks everyone for being present for that. If you are a community that has a land acknowledgement and you'd like to go deeper with us, we are doing some work on reparations, and I will drop a link to our work on that. That's led by Liz Loeb, our Associate Director, and Jessica Intermill. And you're more than welcome to access those resources and that community of inquiry about reparations. So remember where we're coming from. Maybe you remember this metaphor that Julia invited us to consider when we first opened this back in January. We're in a bit of rolling seas, and things seem to have gotten only more shaky and stormy over the last few months with people losing their jobs, huge efforts, important efforts losing funding. And we know that climate change continues to increase and that we face difficulty. So how do we hold the handholds that we need to and build the handholds that we need to move forward in the midst of a tossing sea? Crisis and disruption by the weather, but also crisis in our social isolation and our social networks. We think that resilience networks can help us address both problems at the same time. Resilience hubs and our community climate resilience network that we're seeking to build, all of these are parts of the larger movement of decarbonizing to mitigate climate change and also preparing to adapt to the impacts of climate change and the consequences of climate change. So storm is a metaphor for the context that we find ourselves in, and it will become actual literal context that we find ourselves in from time to time. We started our journey back in January talking about the Urban Sustainability Directors Network and their work on identifying these 5 areas of focus for community resilience hubs: program services, communications, operations, buildings and landscapes, and power. And these 3 kind of modes in which the resilience hub responds to needs in the community. Those of every day, that doesn't mean every day of the week, but kind of the everyday life of the resilience hub. how that changes when a disruption, weather emergency happens, and then what it looks like when we turn to recovery and help our communities recover from the emergencies that we faced. These kind of participating in this landscape requires some planning and some methodologies and some enhancements. And we are leaning on the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, but we're also using some other resources to guide us in this. But so far, these have proven effective, we think, and good guides for us in our work together. This is another kind of mnemonic that we've used that is holding the test of time, kind of a 7-step process. So we've already begun to participate in some of this by the research we've been doing. And this exercise here, these webinars, is one step in the kind of team building that we want to accomplish. You in your context will probably be doing similar steps of research and team building by showing up to these webinars. You're doing a bit of research. You're going to be doing assessments of your facilities and your communities, whether that's a congregation or a local community, a neighborhood, visioning together on what you want to build, and then setting some goals to reach that vision, practicing and experimenting with implementing that, and then consistently evaluating how that's going and adjusting your implementation to meet that evaluation. That's the continuity piece. Now we'd like to turn and let you all have some airtime with each other and with us. Joshua is going to break us into some breakout rooms here, and here are the questions we'd like you to discuss in your breakout rooms. Say a little bit about who you are, who your community is. Are you a community that has some facilities or some kind of property? What's that look like? On a scale of 1 to 10, where are you in that 7-step process, do you think? How ready do you feel? If a weather emergency happened tomorrow, would you be able to respond at all? Maybe a little bit, maybe a lot. Maybe you've had some practice. Just kind of how do you feel about that? And then talk about the vision that you have. You can go, we're going to put you in groups of 3, and you can kind of go one after the other with each question, or you can kind of answer both questions each person. And we'll give you about, say, 7 to 10 minutes here to go through that with each other. And I'll drop those questions in the breakout room session, so you have those. You don't have to remember them. And then we'll come back together, and we have a little poll that we invite you to fill out. So Joshua, whenever you want to drop us into those groups.
All right, I'll do that now. And you want groups of 3 per room?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to start it now.
Okay. You may get a prompt that invites you into the room.
All right, Buff, should we join a room too?
Sure, you can give us a room if you like. Mm-hmm.
And then, did you have a time that you said for this?
Oh, yeah, you can give us about 10 to 12 minutes, maybe. Yeah.
10 to 12 minutes. Okay. Oh, it looks like there's 6 people
Hey,
right
Tyler,
here.
welcome. Glad you made it.
Hey, Bob.
Right,
hey, Joshua.
Hi, Tyler. How are you?
Good, good. Sorry I'm a little late, guys. I was just wrapping up another meeting. So.
No worries.
Are we in the breakout session on what slide do we leave off on, Buff?
We are on slide 8.
Okay.
So maybe we'll just stay here.
Sure.
With our group of 6 right here.
I guess there's only a certain amount of text you can broadcast, so I'll have to do it in 2 parts.
Okay, hi, Jane. Hi, Griffin. Are you guys there? Are you there, Jane? Are you there, Griffin?
Hey, I'm just listening in as I do bath time with my 9-month-old, so I'm not really able to participate, but I am. I'm
Okay.
here and somewhat listening.
Thanks for dropping in. We're glad that's really making a lot of time for us. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Okay, it seems that Jane is not there, so maybe Tyler, I'll assign you to a group.
Yeah,
Great.
you can just listen in.
Okay. Now, Buff. All right, so I
Yeah,
assigned you to a group,
I think I
Tyler.
can choose one. I'll look for a group that's maybe not got a lot of people
Okay.
and drop in to listen. Maybe
I'm going to
I'll
join
go
room
into,
5.
I'm going to join room 2.
Okay.
Welcome, John. We're glad you're here. We're in some breakout rooms, but we'll be returning to the main session here in just a minute.
Buff, I'm gonna jump off and jump to my phone. I'm just traveling here, so I'll be right back on.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks, Tyler. Welcome back from the breakout sessions. I hope you had enough time to engage those questions at least a little bit. Hopefully it left you wanting a little bit more. We'd invite you to drop something you heard, a question or a thought or anything that kind of stood out to you. You don't have to type it all your notes from that session, but just if something in particular stood out to you from your conversation, drop that in the chat if you would. We save the chat, and that way we can follow along with what is rising, bubbling up for folks, and can address those in future webinars or reach out and help direct if that's a good fit. Yes, a resilience hub may be more about building community than services. Good point. Interesting discussion about readiness, personal readiness versus community readiness. Thank you. So communities are in community through space and time. All right. Yes, community is really important. I'm glad everybody's feeling the importance of community. We're exactly right. Resilience hubs are first a social network of people and relationships. That's exactly right. Yes, important communication. That's one of the 5 major buckets that urban sustainability network holds up, is the importance of communication. Maybe Bruce, you're also talking about the technology side of communication networks, the actual. Yeah, how will different groups that are working together in a resilience hub communicate? Mutual aid, check for mutual aid resources, groups that may already exist. Very good point. Yes. And then FPO is building relationships with emergency management personnel in different counties that we hope to learn from and build strong networks with. Very good point. And it's a good point. There may be lots of other mutual aid resources already out there, not just governmental, but other groups. Power generator can and would have in a heavily populated area. Yeah, very good point. Those could be solar generators, could be diesel generators. Have to be prepared to take care of yourself so that you will be able to help others. Yes, and hopefully we're building the local networks that bring us and others all together to be helped. But yes, exactly. You've got to be able to put your own oxygen mask on before you help the person beside you. Good point. Well, good. Well, thank you. Feel free to keep dropping things in the chat. I'm glad you had some good conversations. And I'd like to start a brief poll here. This is just I think it's 3-question poll. Should be easy for you to fill out. And I think you can see the results in real time. So you should be able to see those on your screen. And if you would just fill those out, a couple of them are 1 to 10 scale questions, and then the third is a multiple choice. Are people seeing that on your set coming up on?
The print is pretty small, rough.
Oh, is the print pretty small? Sorry about that.
Yeah, anyway.
Sure. Not sure how to make it bigger.
Yeah, I know.
Looks like you can maybe grab the corners of the dialog box and spread it out a little bit if you like.
I can read it again if that helps.
Yeah,
Question
thanks, Joshua.
1 is, as you think about implementing a resilience hub, how do you feel? That's question 1. As you think about implementing a resilience hub, how do you feel?
Yeah, with 0 being you're completely overwhelmed and 10 being you've pretty much got this in the bag, not sure you even need our assistance.
Yeah.
Where on that continuum?
Number 2 says, how prepared do you feel like your community is for weather emergencies? How prepared do you feel like your community is for weather emergencies? Similar scale, 10. If you feel your community is ready, has plans in place to mitigate loss and make sure everyone has clean water and food and shelter, or 0, you feel like your community is not ready at all. Then question number 3, what aspects are you most excited to dive into regarding resilience hubs? So what aspects are you most excited to dive into regarding resilience hubs? The options are having more going on in our community space. Next is upgrading our buildings. Next is understanding what resources are available in our county and state. Next is serving our community in emergencies. Next is strengthening existing leaders and raising up new leaders. And last is other. Does anyone need anything reread again? Please don't feel shy. You can ask.
Okay, I think you were seeing in real time the responses, but I think if I close the poll, we'll get a report that we can all see. Okay, there we go. Looks like many of us are in the middle ground of feeling between overwhelmed and we've got it covered. Most answers are hovering in the 3 to 6 range. A little bit more diverse in how prepared are we for weather emergencies. Got a few 7s and some 3s, and then a variety of aspects. Overall, many people are interested in many of the things that we plan to offer, so that's great. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. We'll report that out with the follow-up email with those answers so you can go over that more specifically. And we appreciate you filling out that poll. For those of you who feel a little bit overwhelmed, I'm going to share my screen back to the slide deck here. That's normal. You probably should feel that way. This is pretty much a brand new concept. It compiles some things that are not new, but we don't have a lot of people out there doing this, even across the whole country. It's a fairly small set of locations that are actually doing this on a regular basis. And what we want to say is there's a lot of places you can start. So just like the climate change is overwhelming, and that can be difficult. It also means that pretty much anywhere you reach a hand out to, you can touch something that makes a difference. And that's the way these resilience hubs are. So this grid kind of suggests a couple of different things. One, down the left-hand side, these 5 major areas that resilience hubs are guided by: programs, communication, operations, buildings, and power systems. You're probably already doing some things around your facilities with your community that engage one of these areas. Likewise, across the top of this chart, you see there's a lot of different scales that you might be working at. So if your particular faith community or institutional community isn't ready to tackle this, but you've got a few neighbors that live in your area, you might be ready to tackle something in a local context, just among a couple of neighbors. So the thing we want to lift up here is that it's easy to get started, and you can start very modestly and make a difference, both in your own local area and in contributing to kind of the resource knowledge that we're hoping to compile here for everybody on how to move forward with this. Similarly, you can start by thinking about, everyday options for your facilities and your people. What happens to those everyday options when there's a weather emergency, and what does it look like when you're in recovery? Easy ways to start to break this large concept down into manageable pieces. Just like to point out, an example of a local neighborhood type thing might be as simple as gathering a few children that are old enough, maybe middle school, to partner up with an elderly person in your neighborhood. So go and say hello, meet that, go with that child the first time and make a relationship, meet them, so that, in the case of a weather emergency, those particular kids have a connection to an elderly person that they can go and check on. That's a really simple, easy to start with thing that could have applications for every day, for weather emergencies, and for a recovery period of time. The program possibilities are endless, and many of if you come from a faith community or institutional community, you may already be doing some of these programs. And it can be as easy as beginning to imagine how that program shifts and changes when it's pressured by a weather emergency. And how does it continue to function? Is there more pressure to produce more within that program? Or is it merely just adapting to respond to a different modality in that weather emergency? But I know, every time I talk to a faith community, it seems like they're involved in one of these types of programs already, or things that aren't even listed on this list here. So it can be as easy as just talking with the folks that run these ministries or programs and services in your community about helping them imagine what happens in the case of different weather emergencies. So I also want to remind folks that, this first year of our CCRN, Community Climate Resilience Network, that's what CCRN stands for. This first year, we're trying to deliver some basic resources and supports. So we have these webinars. We'll put the link in the chat, and we'll send it in the follow-up email to our YouTube channel, where you can watch the recordings of these webinars that have been topical. We are starting a community of practice. I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute, and other staff here from MNIPL are also going to do that, and partners. And then we're planning to start a statewide task force, and we'll tell you a little bit more about those. So those are the 3 main resources that in this first, 12 to 18 months, we hope to share with everyone here. The webinars are accessible to anybody. Everybody can come, you can watch the recordings, you can engage us, by email and phone about those. The community of practice is going to be a little bit more specific, where we want to start in September, a group of 10 pilot resilience hubs. Remember, social network plus a physical site, each experimenting with implementing these resilience concepts in their community and in their context, and sharing what they face and learn with each other in MNIPL, and then becoming pilots that mentor a new community of practice. These 10 pilot resilience hubs may already be providing some services. They might be a faith community, as in the ones pictured here, a church or a mosque, synagogue, temple, or they might be some kind of institution, a social network that partners with a community building or a library or some other facility. They're each experimenting with implementing resilience concepts. They don't have to be doing every resilience concept, but they're engaging in trying some of this out. So some aspect that fits with their community. And of course, starting with low-hanging fruit and moving towards more sophisticated, maybe bigger reaches and goals. There'll be monthly meetings, and one of the commitments that participants will make in the community practice is that they show up for monthly meetings so that they can talk about what's going on in their attempts and their experimentations, and they can share with one another what's going well, what's maybe a challenge, and learn from one another. And we want to do as much resource sharing as possible. And then MNIPL wants to capture that learning that we all go through in experimenting with this, and so that we've got a fuller resource to offer new communities of practice in the future. Ultimately, we hope to pair new communities of practice participants with former pilots, so people that could participate in the 2025 to 2026 cohort or community of practice would then hopefully be willing to be pilots that mentor or be mentors to new pilots in the coming years. This is our basic timeline. We're hoping to receive applications by June 6th. We realize that some of you may be just been hearing about this, so we'll see how many applications we get by June 6th. We might push that a little bit into June, and then we'll start interviewing folks in June and July. This won't be a burdensome interview process. It'll be a conversation and discussion, and we want to find out more about you. The application online is just a kind of a quick, kind of nuts and bolts, kind of top line application, and then the interview will give us a chance to engage more deeply with you, answer some questions you might have, and also find out more about your community. We will be selecting based on creating a community of practice that represents all of Minnesota. So not just a diverse geography, but diversity in a variety of factors, maybe size, perspectives, urban versus rural, suburban, that type of thing as well. And then those monthly meetings will begin in September. We'll have a kickoff in early September in person, and then we'll have online meetings and conclude with another in-person gathering. You can find the application on our website. If you go to our website and do the drop-down menu there under Take Action, you'll see the Resilience Hub line. And then if you go to the CCRN Community of Practice, you'll get to the application. You'll have to scroll down on that page to get to the application. We have some description about our vision and goals and kind of what the commitment expectations are, and then you can fill out the application. We're saying June 6th. We hope we'll get a lot of applications by then. If we need more applications, we'll push the deadline into June. We will also be sending a link to this application out in the follow-up email to this. And if I can manage my screens okay, I'll drop it in the chat here in just a little bit as well. Here are the folks on the team, on the CCRN team. Julia Nurburn, our executive director, who's been leading these webinars, is on the team. She couldn't be here tonight. She had a family commitment with her daughter graduating from high school. I'm on the team. I do mainly planning and systems, but each of us has multiple capacities. We might just concentrate in one or another. Erica Meyer is on the call. She'll be speaking in just a minute. She's working on the curriculum side of things. Joshua, as you know, you heard this evening, and many of you know Joshua, have been working with him. He's working in the community engagement arena. Tyler Vogel is on the call. He'll be speaking in just a minute, working on the funding and resources side of things. And many of you know our Greater Minnesota Director, Brett Pence. He's especially good with efficiency, building efficiency and renewable energy, and will be helping us make sure we have good representation across the water state. So I'm going to hand it over to Erica Meyer here. I'll let you introduce yourself, Erica, and tell us a little bit about what your part of the presentation is.
Great, thank you, Buff. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Erica Meyer, and I have just started volunteering with Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light in a more substantial way. My background is in environmental education and writing, and so I'm really excited about working with you all and seeing how I can support. Again, my main focus will be kind of on curriculum, but this curriculum is pretty flexible. The goal with it really is to focus on highlighting those 5 areas of resilience hubs that Buff highlighted earlier, and that I'll show again in the next slide, to making sure that you have support in those, and I can identify where you want to focus in those 5 areas. And then also highlighting key case studies and guides that can support you. So I'm based in Minneapolis now, but right before this, I was in graduate school in Western North Carolina, which was recently hit by Hurricane Helene. And so I have a lot of friends and former colleagues who have shared which communities and which practices were most helpful for them in recovering from the storm. And so those case studies and guides can be really informative to us. But then step 3, we also want to make sure that we have action reflection for the local context and understand how we can use those guides to inform what you're doing, but also work with what you have and what makes the most sense in this local context. I'm going to share in the chat too, one of the most beloved groups from my friends in Asheville and Western North Carolina here. I'm not sponsored by them, but yeah, just as an example. And then we can go to the next slide. So the goal throughout the curriculum, again, is to highlight these 5 different focus areas of resilience hubs and how your community might respond in an everyday situation, when there is a disturbance or a disruption, and then when you're recovering. And the goal also is to not get overwhelmed, so we can kind of just go through these piece by piece and work together in identifying what's most helpful for your community. Thanks so much. I'll pass it over to Joshua.
Awesome. Thank you, Erica. All right, let's see if I can manage my screens as well. But yeah, I see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of new faces too. And some of this might be a little bit of review, but I really want to make sure we are dialing into what exactly this community of practice is going to benefit our communities with. And a good place to start is really asking that question, what does this process look like? And asking that question, how do we create a community vision that is steeped in our principles and values? And if you can hit the arrow button on there, Buff, I think I have it animated by paragraph. kind of did that reflexively. Okay. So if you want to take a second and put into the chat, how do you feel like you can create a community vision that is steeped in your groups or who you're representing's principles and values? Maybe if you could think of one thing and put it in the chat, that would be great. I know we come from a diverse or a variety of backgrounds, and we have different principles and values that by which we govern our organizations, and one of which that we utilize in the environmental justice space is the HEMES environmental justice principles. And a question that I want to ask, and you can kind of click through these, is about 6, Buff, is how can we adapt these environmental justice principles of organizing to developing our resilience hubs? And I'll tell you that we will be here with you every step of the way in analyzing what our values are and how we can best ensure that we stay true to our principles and values. And just going through those HEMES principles, we have be inclusive. And that requires more than tokenism. It cannot be achieved without diversity at the planning table and staffing and in coordination. It also includes bottom-up organizing. We must be continually building and strengthening a base which provides our relationship, our priorities, activities, preparedness, leadership, development, and the energy for the work we must do daily. Next, we have letting people speak for themselves. It's important for organizations to clarify their roles and who they represent. Who are you? What do you represent? I think a lot of us might have a clear idea of that. And then how do we ensure, as we're going through this new process, that we're accountable within our structures? Next is working together in solidarity and mutuality, right? When it comes to groups working on similar issues with compatible visions, I think I saw in the chat a few examples of this. We should be consciously acting in solidarity and mutuality and supporting each other's work. Because in the long run, a more significant step is to incorporate the goals and values of other groups with our own work in order to build strong relationships. And that weaves right into the next one. Build just relationships amongst ourselves, right? Treat each other with justice and respect. And last, that commitment to self-transformation. We must change from operating on the mode of individualism to community-centeredness and walk our talk. If you click to the next slide, this was mentioned briefly earlier, right? To create a hub, we have it broken down into 7 steps, right? Now, these steps come from the Urban Sustainable Directors Network, USDN, and this artwork is created by Susan Silber at Collaborative Resilience. Now, with your community's values in mind, envision having a statewide group of experts by your side as you navigate. How do you identify key leaders in your community? And how might you be better able to understand your assets and their skills and the energy of your team towards this endeavor? In this community of practice, I will be there to guide you through the process of conducting research through visioning sessions in October. And then we'll come back together in November where we'll unpack those discoveries and the results and create a detailed action plan. From there, developing plans, conducting assessments, setting up systems so that we are iteratively visioning with stakeholders in the community, setting and prioritizing goals, implementing in continuity and perpetuity. Community of practice is an opportunity to get this guidance for an entire year and to have a support group, a cadre, so to speak, that you can learn from and share to and share with. And this is what we've crafted in our community of practice. And yeah, I'll leave it there. You could go to the next slide. I'll pass it back to Buff. I'm sorry, I'm passing it to Tyler.
Thanks so much, Joshua. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. I've only met a few of you so far, but I want to thank you for letting me on this. My name is Tyler Vogel. I work for an organization called Community Reinvestment Fund. But the hat I'm kind of wearing with this work is working with organizations called CDFIs, Community Development Finance Institutions. These kind of like credit unions are neighborhood community-specific financing institutions. And for this kind of slide, I'm kind of wearing the hat of where is the financing and funding support fit within this statewide task force. As Joshua and Buff have said, this can be overwhelming, right? This resiliency hub work is net new, it's needed for the future. And so where we're kind of growing and learning together is Minnesota is really this very interesting, fascinating microcosm of so many different types of organizations that are trying to understand, what does green financing look like? What does doing this work to be intentional for climate justice and social justice? And so the statewide task force is meant to help here. And so what kind of my role is, I'm working with a bunch of other practitioners, so think lenders, think program designers, on this Minnesota CDFI coalition, that stands for Community Development Finance Institutions, to see where we can learn as an industry to help meet the needs of you all to get financing, and work with partnering with philanthropy to see if we can get more financing out to these type of projects. So that's kind of the financing subgroup that I'm going to be coordinating with this incredible team. As part of my role helping coordinate this statewide task force, I'll be planning to have consultations with practitioners in the community of practice to map out financing of projects and see where we can get other CDFIs or other financiers that kind of learn and help support with this. I would say some really kind of exciting things is, I don't know if many of you have heard that one of the newest, what's called green banks in the country, is right here in Minnesota. I don't know why we love acronyms so much, but it's called MNCFA, the Minnesota Climate Innovation Finance Authority. And so they're working with the CDFI industry and philanthropy to kind of fill the gap. They're funding projects $250,000 and greater, but there's so many others that are working with this and trying to work with some federal programs. Now, of course, some of those are not as liquid and open right now, just with the current administration. But those are still amazing programs that a lot of these resources tap into. So that's kind of some of these resources as well. The task force will also incorporate regional support circles. A good example of this that I think maybe some folks on this call have worked with is the Ramsey counties, working hand to hand with CCRN to develop clear pathways for the county to integrate with local resilience hubs. MNIPL has been working with members of the emergency preparedness team in the county to develop a clear set of roles and responsibilities to play during an emergency. So all of this kind of fits together. And just to that point earlier, if this is kind of overwhelming, that this is all meant and we're kind of learning together, and you don't have to share the burden of understanding where all of these pieces fit together. So in summary, you're going to tell your community of practice what you need, and this statewide task force is going to help you to find out what you're looking for, and we're going to learn kind of along the way too. So I know that was a lot, but any questions, and apologies as I'm parking outside before a dinner meeting here, but any last questions on kind of that piece before I send it back to Buff and Joshua?
I wonder if anybody could provide in the link also the Green Bank connection.
Yeah, absolutely, Buff. I don't know if you have that. I think there's a great, their website's a little bit more revamped. They just hired their first executive director.
I think I just put it in.
Oh, good. Good. I think that's the Minnesota CDFI Coalition. I think if you can put in MNCFA as well.
Yeah, I can't grab that right now on sharing screen, but I can get that.
Here, I will grab it right now and put it in there. Oh, Joshua's got it. Thank you, Joshua. And I'll pass it back to you, Buff.
Yeah, I'll just add, thanks, Tyler. Thanks so much for joining us and describing that side of the equation. That you do such a good job of that. I would also put in the same kind of category as the county teams we're working with. There in Minnesota, there are regional development councils, and some of those are more robust than others and working on these issues. I just noticed that I know the Southern Regional Development Council, Region 9, in the Mankato-St. Peter area has been working on these issues, or energy issues, for quite a while. They're part of what make up the clean energy resource teams. But I also saw, Brett just showed us today that the Arrowhead Regional Development Council has just launched a resilience campaign and it's got a 28-member team working on this. So that's probably on a scope that's much bigger than what we are trying to accomplish. But it's a good example of how Brett knows those folks and is able to learn and access what they're working on and take what works on the scale that we're trying to accomplish and kind of take the things that fit our scale. So that gives you an example of some of that that kind of statewide task force type expertise that comes to the table there. So we really appreciate your expertise, Tyler, from the finance side of things and the funding side. That's very helpful. So thanks for being on the call. We will get to questions here, another Q&A section here in just a minute, but I just want to point out that, Julia is our main kind of visionary and creative force here in Guide. She picked this, just as she chose the ship kind of through the stormy seas to kind of kick us off in January, she chose this puzzle for this section to really, and I think it's a great metaphor for what we're facing. There's so many little pieces to this puzzle and they all fit together. And if you've played with these types of puzzles before, you know that there's different ones and they work differently. They aren't all the same solution. And we hope that this can be invigorating and life-giving and fun. There can be some creativity and enjoyment in tackling these problems together, and that not every single, and that every single version of this is going to be slightly different and have a slightly different solution to what works in your context. What I'd like to invite you to do is to let us know, either if you want to drop it in the chat or if you want to come off mute and just toss out things that, anything that you feel like we haven't addressed. If you've been part of the webinars over the last 4 months, what's missing so far? What as you've engaged this material to this point, what do you feel like we haven't discussed that would be helpful to discuss in upcoming webinars?
Hi, Buff. This is Larry from Judson.
Thank you.
Maybe this is an obvious question, but is there really any cost for, say, a community of faith or a group to participate in this resilience network?
Good question. At this stage, accessing the resources that we're putting together, there's no cost. So we want to make those resources as widely available as possible. The nature of the community of practice is such that we have to limit that to a certain number of participants. It doesn't mean that if you aren't in the community of practice, you can't still be attempting to implement these things. And we've got as much staff time as we've got. We'll continue to help people. We'll work one-on-one and whatnot, even if you're not in the community of practice. We do hope to get some funding to support the 10 sites that are in the community of practice to to participate. We know that requires some resources to show up at those meetings and to implement these things. And we don't have funding at this stage, but we are working on that. We do hope to be able to help at least some of the participants fund that staff work. Or it may be volunteer, but it's a staff function type thing. So at this stage, there's no cost other than your own time and effort and local resources that it takes your community to engage these ideas.
Thanks, Buff.
Sure. Yeah. Well, last, and you can bring up more items, but just that we will have another webinar in June. We hope you'll come to that, and we hope you'll apply. We hope that what we want to make sure to underline with this invitation to application is that this is should not be a burdensome thing. We aren't asking particularly strenuous questions in the application. It's mainly to get an idea of who your community is and what you're about. I think Joshua, thanks a lot for dropping the link in the chat for that application. I'm going to drop it again just in case anybody missed that. It is really pretty easy to fill it out, and we hope you'll fill it out and let us know you're interested. Even if we find that because of various criteria we have on our side for getting a good diversity of projects, that your congregation or institution isn't chosen to be in this first round, we're going to have future rounds. And we're going, if we develop more funding and resources to help, we may be able to open a second community practice sooner than we thought. So it's great to have a big bank of applications that we can draw on and go back to. So we hope you'll fill that out. Other questions for Erica or Joshua or myself? We're happy to answer. Or comments, suggestions for us?
I just want to encourage everybody to do whatever they can just in their own day-to-day living situation to recognize aspects that help contribute to some of our climate crisis, and to do, if everybody did one little thing every month to change a habit, whatever, all in the course of 3 or 4 years, a lot of habits would be changed.
Very good point. Thank you, Don.
And I guess the follow up on that is, a lot of times people wait for when are they going to do something about this? They is us.
That's right. We're the ones we've been waiting for.
Mm-hmm.
I have also enjoyed the breakout sessions, just to get to know a couple of fellas today and what they're doing in their churches. Hugely valuable.
Well, thank you all. Thanks for your time tonight and your attention. We hope this has been helpful and our resources helpful. We're Joshua, Erica, myself, Brett, Tyler, Julia. We are here for you. If you've got great ideas, if you get inspired and sparks, or if you've got questions, you want assistance, if you start filling out an application and it doesn't make sense, our emails are on the website, and we are here to help. We'll also include those in the follow-up email for this. And I'd just like to close with a quote from Namonte Ninklimo, who's an indigenous climate activist and protectionist for her community in the Amazon, in what is now Ecuador. And she says, taking care of the rainforest is not only of importance to indigenous people. This fight, what we are doing day after day, is for all of us living on this planet. You can be assured that what you are doing in your community is not only for you and your community, it's for the whole world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
Yeah, good night. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Great job. Great job, guys.
I think I
Yeah.
hope that was clear enough, and we got done a little early. That was good. So earlier than we thought. Thank you, Erica. Thanks.
Yeah, I
Joshua.
didn't see too many people scratching their heads, so that's a good thing, I think.
Hopefully it was simple enough. And
Do you know that? Do you have a relationship with Don Green, Buff? The Don Allen?
no,
Green?
I don't. I
I
don't know.
wonder what neighborhood he's in.